Chapter 2179. Since Yun Yun has already made her decision, let her be. Feng Yu frowned slightly and replied, Yun Yun is too naive. It's good to let her suffer outside. Xiaobai reached out and hugged Feng Yu. He silently thought to himself, as long as I'm fine, what does Xiao Yijuan have to do with me? If father and mother knew about this, I wonder what kind of expression they would have. If Yun Tian knew that his precious daughter had been wronged, how could he spare Xiao Yijuan? Thinking of this, Xiaobai's mood instantly improved. After all, he had been angered by Xiao Yijuan several times. Xiao Yijuan even wanted to trick Feng Yu away? Retribution has come. Yun Tian came much faster than Feng Yu imagined. No one dared to stop him when he boldly barged into Prince Qingping's residence. Yun Tian had aged quite a bit, but his middle-aged appearance made him look even more majestic. Where's my daughter? Yun Tian rushed into Xiaobai's study and shouted loudly. Only Xiaobai was able to remain calmly pointing the way for Yun Tian. Father! When Yun Yun saw that Yun Tian had arrived, she immediately threw herself into Yun Tian's embrace. The grievances that she had endured for the past few days caused her eyes to turn red. However, she held back her tears and did not allow them to fall. Seeing Yun Yun like this, Yun Tian was so angry that he wanted to flatten the prince's residence. Fortunately, Yun Yun acted coquettishly and coaxed her father to calm down. When he took Yun Yun away, Yun Tian glanced coldly at Xiaobai. He was incomparably depressed. He managed to guard against Xiaobai, the hungry wolf, but failed to guard against Xiao Yijuan. Was he going to fall into the hands of this family for the rest of his life? How could Yun Tian not be angry? Yun Yun left just like that, and the prince's residence returned to silence. Xiaobai was very considerate and let someone leak the news of Yun Yun's departure. Today, Xiao Yijuan was eating tea and drinking wine as usual. However, when he saw the waiter, he happily welcomed him and said, Young Master Xiao, the beauty beside you has left. Would you like an extra cup of wine today? Are you saying this to make this young master unhappy? How do you know I'm not waiting for a beauty? Xiao Yijuan replied calmly. Young Master Xiao, don't lie to me. I saw it yesterday. The girl who used to follow young Master Xiao left with her family yesterday. She bought a lot of goods. I'm afraid she's going on a long journey, right? What did you say? Xiao Yijuan, who was originally calm, lost his composure after hearing this. Could it be that young Master Xiao still doesn't know? The waiter was clearly stunned. When he saw Xiao Yijuan's expression, he immediately knew that he had said something wrong. He laughed awkwardly and hurriedly withdrew. Xiao Yijuan immediately ran to the prince's mansion. After hearing the exact answer from Xiaobai, Xiao Yijuan suddenly felt that his mood was very strange. This feeling made Xiao Yijuan feel very uncomfortable. Xiao Yijuan was still brooding over what had happened to Feng Yu back then. If Feng Yu had been brave enough to take a step forward, perhaps Feng Yu would not have left. Until now, Xiao Yijuan had always thought that he cared about Feng Yu, but now that he saw how close Feng Yu and Xiaobai were, he actually felt extremely comfortable, as if he had put down a burden. But today, when he knew that Yun Yun had left just like that, Xiao Yijuan suddenly felt that he really deserved it. Chapter 2180. Feng Yu's days in the palace became more and more peaceful. In the blink of an eye, it was the Crown Prince's birthday. Feng Ling also arrived before the Crown Prince's birthday. When she saw that her younger sister had been abducted by Xiaobai, Feng Ling was still rather calm. After all, when she had first received the news, Feng Ling had almost rushed over to kill Xiaobai. Those threatening words made Feng Ling deeply aware that Feng Yu was not willing. Xiaobai actually dared to use such a method on his sister. How could Feng Ling not be angry? Therefore, when Feng Ling arrived, his temper could be said to be quite bad. Feng Yu did not have the slightest intention of comforting him. Clearly, she thought of the previous matter and was still angry with Xiaobai. At this moment, she was happy to see her brother teach Xiaobai a lesson. However, Feng Ling's temper only lasted for 3 days. Seeing Xiaobai treating Feng Yu so well and Feng Yu following Xiaobai's behavior, Feng Ling knew that this marriage was probably set. His sister was finally going to get married. A grown girl cannot be kept at home. Feng Ling sat in Feng Yu's room and looked at Feng Yu, who was making tea for him. He spoke very leisurely. Brother. Feng Yu's face immediately reddened. She looked at Feng Ling and said, You are not young anymore. Do you plan to be alone forever? Don't you plan to find me a sister-in-law? Women are too troublesome. This young master is more comfortable alone. Feng Ling said very unconcernedly. Only you have such thoughts. Feng Yu glared at Feng Ling and said, When I get married in the future, who will take care of you? You little girl. Feng Ling heard Feng Yu's words and his heart warmed. However, he still glared at Feng Yu and said, When you were not married, I didn't see you take care of me. Now that I think about it, why would Xiaobai like you? Brother, how can you talk about your sister like that? Feng Yu was immediately unhappy. However, after thinking carefully, Feng Ling seemed to be telling the truth. Brother, thank you for taking care of me for so many years. Feng Yu looked at Feng Ling softly. Her heart was a little sour. Feng Ling was many years older than her. Since young, he had always accommodated her. However, when she was young, she was still so troublesome. Now, in the blink of an eye, she was going to get married, but her brother, silly girl. Feng Ling reached out and patted Feng Yu's head. Looking at the slim and graceful Feng Yu standing in front of her, she felt a wave of emotion in her heart. It was as if she had raised a daughter. She could not help but laugh. The two of them talked about interesting stories from their childhood in this courtyard, and it was quite harmonious. When Xiaobai arrived, he stood outside for a while, then turned around and left without alerting anyone, leaving this room to the two siblings. I'm going to visit Xing Er. Long time no see. Feng Ling spoke to Feng Yu for a long time before she stood up. Feng Yu nodded and said that she wanted to send her regards. Feng Ling agreed. She did not bring the people from the prince's mansion out. Instead, she wandered the streets alone. Looking at the bustling streets, Feng Ling's baby face did not look old even after so many years. On the streets, there were quite a number of ladies throwing flirtatious glances at Feng Ling. However, Feng Ling did not respond to any of them. Xing Er had just finished practicing his guqin and sword when he heard a servant report that an old friend had come to see him. Old friend? Did he say his name? Xing Er asked with a frown as he took the handkerchief from the guard and wiped the sweat off his face. Chapter 2181. She didn't say. This servant doesn't look like someone from the imperial city. The guard thought for a moment before replying. Xing Er was silent for a moment. After replying indifferently, he walked towards the living room. When he walked through the door, he saw the person standing in the living room with her hands behind her back. Her plain white clothes made Xing Er slightly stunned. Feng Ling was sizing up the decorations in the room when she heard footsteps behind her. She slowly turned her head and looked at Xing Er with a pair of clear eyes. Then, the corners of her mouth curled into a faint smile as she called out, Xing Er, long time no see. Feng Ling? When Xing Er saw that the person who turned around was Feng Ling, his eyes were instantly filled with surprise. He quickly walked up and looked at Feng Ling as he asked, Why are you here? What else could it be? Naturally, it's because of that girl Feng Yu and Xiaobai. Feng Ling helplessly shook her head and smiled. I was confused. Come, let's sit down and talk. Xing Er was obviously very happy. He pulled Feng Ling to the side and sat down before starting to talk. When Shangguan Linglan heard the news, he also brought his two children, Xing Krui and Xing Kejuan, over. Feng Ling looked at this family and her heart was filled with emotions. She silently wondered if she should also consider marrying and having children. The Crown Prince's birthday was also very lively. The entire country was filled with jubilation. Feng Yu had been in the imperial city for so long, but today was the first time she entered the palace. Speaking of which, Feng Yu was very curious about the palace. When we enter the palace later, you will stay by Aunt Lan's side. Xiaobai held Feng Yu's hand in the carriage and said, I understand. Feng Yu slowly nodded. In front of the palace gates, Feng Yu got down from Xiaobai's sedan and sat together with Shangguan Linglan. The two children also followed Shangguan Linglan into the palace. Little girl, how are you getting along with Xiaobai? Shangguan Linglan's ambiguous gaze caused Feng Yu's cheeks to instantly turn red. Aunt Lan. Feng Yu very coquettishly glared at Shangguan Linglan and called out. Okay, I won't say anything. Shangguan Linglan knew that Feng Yu was shy. The corner of his mouth curled into a faint smile as he said, I haven't entered the palace for a long time. Feng Yu had always been very curious. It had been so many years. Lu Miaoqiu was also the noble empress, but she was still so close to Shangguan Linglan. Feng Yu suddenly felt a faint envy in his heart. The palace was as magnificent as ever. There were people everywhere. There were many rules in the palace, but since Feng Yu entered the palace with Shangguan Linglan, those who wanted to say something to Feng Yu didn't dare to say anything. Today was the crown prince's birthday. Who didn't know the relationship between Shangguan Linglan and the empress? At that time, there were some blind people who went to the empress and said that Shangguan Linglan was bad. If it wasn't for the emperor's protection, that family would have been beheaded by the empress. It was because of this incident that the wives of these officials were more or less afraid of Shangguan Linglan. Moreover, Shangguan Linglan was a female general at that time. Now, she was the wife of a general. She didn't follow the rules at that time. If they angered her, they wouldn't have a good ending. Chapter 2182. Feng Yu followed behind Shangguan Linglan and listened to Shangguan Linglan's introductions. She nodded her head in agreement. Xiao Bai sat not far from Feng Yu. When he raised his head, he could see Feng Yu smiling at Xiao Bai. She was talking to Xing Kejuan, who was sitting beside her. Xing Kejuan was very lively while Xing Krui, who was sitting beside her, was very mature. Big sister Yu, don't bother with big brother. He just likes to pretend. Xing Kejuan didn't give any face to Xing Krui. Her words caused Xing Krui's face to darken. He reached out his hand and pinched Xing Kejuan's cheek. Have you forgotten about the respectful big brother that father and mother taught you? Isn't he just born a little earlier than me? Let go. It hurts. Xing Kejuan reached out her hand and slapped Xing Krui's hand. Xing Krui didn't really use any strength. However, this little girl's skin was very tender. At this moment, it was already red. Coupled with her big teary eyes, it really made one's heart ache. Xing Krui looked at Xing Kejuan and frowned in disdain. Pretend, continue pretending. Xing Krui was unmoved. He was already used to this little sister of his. Only you can pretend. Can't I? Xing Kejuan was very unhappy and glared at Xing Krui. While the siblings were bickering, loud cheers could be heard from the other side. The emperor and empress had arrived, and the noise in the room immediately disappeared. Everyone knelt down to pay their respects, and only after the people on the high seats were seated did they get up and return to their own seats. The banquet was like this. Some speeches were made, some auspicious words were spoken, and some gifts were presented. Xiao Yuling was obviously very happy and accepted them one by one. Xiao Yuling's complexion was very healthy, and Lu Miaoqiu, who was beside her, was still as beautiful as ever. However, the majesty of the people in the high seats was even heavier. When a pair of eyes swept across the room, it caused everyone to lower their heads. The small and tender figure sitting below Xiao Yuling and Lu Miaoqiu was the main character of today's banquet. The Tokyo Crown Prince, Xiao Tianyu. He was wearing a bright yellow robe and his small body was sitting very straight. His unsmiling face really gave off a dignified feeling, if one ignored his eyes that were rolling around. Xiao Tianyu's eyes looked around and finally found Xing Kejuan and Xing Krui. His eyes immediately lit up and a faint smile appeared on his face. Feng Yu was unable to stay at the banquet. Just as she was feeling bored, she heard a commotion. Feng Yu was slightly stunned. When she raised her head, she saw Xiao Bai walking towards her. Accompany this king for a walk. Xiao Bai bowed slightly to Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er, then turned to Feng Yu and said, The banquet is still going on. Feng Yu said as she glared at Xiao Bai. If you want to go, then go. Tianyu, go play with Krui. Xiao Yuling had already seen that Xiao Tianyu couldn't sit still. Seeing that the banquet was about to end, she waved her hand and said. Xiao Tianyu's eyes immediately revealed a joyful expression. After bowing to the emperor and thanking him, He went to play with Xing Kejuan and Xing Ke. Xiao Bai and Feng Yu also received permission to walk towards the back of the palace and stroll in the garden. Xiao Bai's actions immediately made everyone know that Princess Qingping, who had caused a huge uproar a while ago, was the woman the emperor had bestowed to her. She was indeed a beauty. Chapter 2183. It was said that he was the Miaojiang's patriarch. Today, they finally got to see him in person. In the past, they always felt that Prince Qingping was very difficult to get close to. Many people had ideas about Prince Qingping, but they were all rejected. Now, seeing Prince Qingping and Feng Yu like this, those who had originally stopped thinking about it began to plan again. The position of Princess Consort was gone, but the position of Consort could still be fought for. Suddenly, Shangguan Linglan's side was surrounded by a lot of people, and there were also a lot of people on the Empress side. After the banquet ended, Feng Yu almost despised Xiao Bai to death when she heard the news. Attracting bees and butterflies. Xiao Bai's face was also black. He wondered if it was because he hadn't killed for too long that these people had forgotten his temper. The Crown Prince's birthday passed in the blink of an eye. Since Feng Yu was marrying Xiao Bai as the Miaojiang's patriarch, there were still some things that needed to be prepared. The Empress even brought Feng Yu into the palace to live for a long time. Shangguan Linglan naturally brought the two children to accompany her from time to time. There's still no change in the palace. Shangguan Linglan and Lu Miaoqiu walked in the imperial garden. Shangguan Linglan looked at the flowers and plants and said indifferently, "Isn't that so?" Lu Miaoqiu sighed and said, "I'm tired of staying in the palace. Jingyu left so quickly. She didn't show up for 8 years. This time, Xiao Bai is getting married. If she still doesn't come, I'll burn her forest." Shangguan Linglan heard Lu Miaoqiu's words and suddenly laughed. He said slowly, "Your husband is afraid that Xiao Chen will come and take his position. If Jingyu and Xiao Chen were here, how many people would be frightened?" "Alas." Lu Miaoqiu sighed and said, "How could I not know? It's just that this girl has to come back and see what's going on. She's so heartless." Shangguan Linglan and Xiao Chen began to criticize Jingyu. They knew that Jingyu and Xiao Chen would definitely come back for Xiao Bai's wedding, so they were looking forward to it. On one hand, they were complaining, but on the other, they were excited. Everyone knew about Xiao Bai's wedding, and it was widely publicized. 10 days before the wedding, people gathered from all directions, and the first to arrive were Xing Yi and Su Yu. The two of them brought their children and moved into Xing Heir's residence. The second ones to arrive were Helian Theo and Feng Maching. The arrival of the two of them surprised Shangguan Linglan for a long time. He originally thought that the two of them would not come because of special circumstances. She didn't expect the two of them to be here. They were also heading to Xing Heir's house. Then more people came. 15th Xing. "I dare you to touch me again." Mo Ruhua glared at 15th Xing and shouted angrily. "I was wrong." 15th Xing looked at Mo Ruhua with an aggrieved expression. "Shut up." Mo Ruhua and 15th Xing also rushed to Xing Heir's residence. Mo Ruhua wanted to see her family's head, but 15th Xing hadn't seen his elder brother for a long time. No matter what, he had to drag Mo Ruhua to greet him. "You've been mine since 2 years ago. Now that I've caught you, you still want to deny it?" 15th Xing looked at Mo Ruhua's unwilling expression and said, "Don't tell me you don't want to be reserved?" Mo Ruhua was flustered. Her face was red as she said, "I'm not ready. What's there to prepare? Let's go." 15th Xing dragged Mo Ruhua into the residence without any explanation. Chapter 2184. Since 15th Xing brought his wife here, everyone was naturally happy. They all grabbed Mo Ruhua and asked her about her well-being. "Brat, didn't you say Mo Ruhua ran away?" Interrogation Officer 1 was dressed in black. Looking at the group of women gathered together, he raised his eyebrows slightly and said to Interrogation Officer 15. Interrogation Officer 15 was very respectful towards Interrogation Officer 1. When he heard Xing Yi's words, he scratched his head shyly and said, "She ran away for 2 years. I only found her half a year ago. That woman is too wild." "Ah." Interrogation Officer 1 laughed out loud when he heard that. He gave Interrogation Officer 15 a thumbs up and said, "I heard that you did something shocking to the lady and she chased you for a year. Big brother, don't mention it." 15th Xing didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "If she hears it and runs away again, I won't have anywhere to cry." Xing Shiwu was embarrassed. Back then he didn't know what was wrong with him, but he felt that Mo Ruhua was very interesting. Once, he accidentally barged into a lady's bathroom. Not only did he see her naked, he even touched her. It was earth-shattering back then. Mo Ruhua chased 15th Xing for an entire year, but she couldn't beat him. The two of them were like a cat playing with a mouse. When 15th Xing made his intentions clear, Mo Ruhua was unwilling. 15th Xing was unwilling to give up, so he made a bet with Mo Ruhua. If he could find her, then Mo Ruhua would marry him. That was why 15th Interrogation Officer had chased after her for 2 years. Even Mo Ruhua's heart of stone had softened. A man had searched for her for so long without giving up. If such a man wasn't worth following, who was? Mo Ruhua couldn't bring herself to do it. Now that Su Yu, Shangguan Linglong, and the others talked to her, the bit of resentment in her heart disappeared. All that was left was shyness. Everyone who should be here came. Xiao Bai's wedding was in 10 days, but there was no news of Jing Yu and Xiao Qin, who everyone was looking forward to. Everyone couldn't help but think, could it be that Jing Yu and Xiao Qin didn't even come to their son's wedding? 5 days before the wedding, Shangguan Linglong brought Feng Yu to her residence. She was prepared to let Feng Yu get married from her residence. She just had to go through the ceremony. Interrogation Officer 1 and Interrogation Officer 15 naturally went to the prince's residence. They were Xiao Bai's people. Helian Theo, Feng Maching and Feng Ling stayed. Feng Yu's mother had passed away. When she got married, Shangguan Linglong would take care of her needs. Shangguan Linglong felt like he was marrying off his own daughter. Is there still no news from Jing Yu and Xiao Qin? Feng Ling frowned and asked Feng Maching. No news. Feng Maching shook his head slightly and said, "Since Xing Yi said that Xiao Qin agreed to come, then he will definitely come. We can't rush it." Although Feng Ling was unhappy, she didn't say anything. Her sister was getting married. Jing Yu and Xiao Qin were Xiao Bai's elders. They had to be there, right? Jing Lang and Xiao Yijuan had also arrived at the prince's residence. At this moment, the prince's residence was very busy. Xiao Bai had made the wedding extremely grand. It was as if he wanted to show off his entire residence's wealth. The ceremony was also very grand. Everyone was paying attention to this wedding. Everyone was waiting for the day to come. They were also waiting for the person they were looking forward to appear. Chapter 2185. 2 days before the wedding, Jing Yu and Xiao Qin still didn't come, but Yun Yun, who had gone far away, came back with her parents. The imperial city was getting more and more lively by the day. The people outside were all talking about Xiao Bai's wedding and the people who appeared outside. Those familiar faces were all those who participated in the battle back then. The 4 nations of the past, the poison sect and the holy clan of the past, these distant memories seemed to appear before the eyes of the older generation. These were the things that the children heard the most in their ears. In the Tokyo Imperial City, an ordinary carriage slowly drove into the imperial city without attracting anyone's attention. Wow, so this is the Tokyo Imperial City. A small head popped out from the carriage. His handsome little face was filled with curiosity about what was happening outside. "Let me see." Another head popped out, and a look of excitement appeared on that cold and handsome face. The 2 heads looked left and right until a deep voice called out, "Zi and Zien, take back your heads." "Mother, I want to go down and play." Xiao Zien retracted his head and blinked his big eyes. His eyebrows were very similar to Jing Yu's. At this time, Xiao Zien was already 9 years old. He had grown up a lot, but his temperament had not changed. Jing Yu, who was sitting in the carriage, slowly turned her head. Her golden-green eyes were very calm. There was no change in the light in her eyes. 8 years had not left any trace on Jing Yu's body. However, at a glance, she seemed even more charming. Xiao Qin reached out and grabbed Jing Yu's waist. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the two stinking brats in front of him. He said with an unkind expression, "If you don't listen, I will throw you back into the forest." Xiao Chen's aura was very scary. When he stared at the two brats, they immediately shut up. But in their hearts, they were silently complaining. "Daddy is getting fiercer and fiercer." Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen's expression and smiled faintly. Just as she was about to speak, the carriage suddenly swayed. The two brats in the carriage almost hit their heads. Fortunately, Xiao Chen's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast enough to protect the two children. "Third Xing," Xiao Chen called out with a gloomy face. "Master, please forgive us. Someone bumped into our carriage." Third Xing heard Xiao Chen's murderous voice from inside the carriage. He immediately trembled and hurriedly spoke. "How dare you? How dare you block this lady's path? Get out of the way." Xiao Chen and Jingyu hadn't said anything yet, but when they heard the arrogant words outside, they were stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. "This is really fun. We have only just arrived at the Imperial City and we have already encountered such an interesting matter." Jingyu's smile was very gentle, but her eyes were incomparably cold. Xiao Chen quietly sat at the side and listened to the commotion outside. The woman's voice made Jingyu frown. Xiao Xin and Xiao Zian, the two brats, could not stand it anymore. Xiao Xin lifted the curtain and said, "Uncle Third Xing, let's go. Let's not delay the time." Third Xing lowered his head when he heard Xiao Xian's words. This was the little master. The little master's words were the master's words. Naturally, he had to listen. Chapter 2186. After Third Xing responded, he turned his horse around and prepared to leave. However, he did not expect that the woman would not let him go and blocked his path. "How dare you? You want to leave after bumping into me?" The woman led her men to block the carriage. Xiao Xin immediately frowned. This ugly woman was really reckless. "This young master was kind enough to let you go, but you rushed to your death." Xiao Xin looked at the woman and said coldly, "A little doll dares to teach this young lady a lesson? Men, cut off that little bitch's tongue." With one look, it was obvious that this young lady was used to being arrogant. When she said those words, the expressions of the people in the carriage changed. Jingyu's originally calm smile completely disappeared. Xiao Chen slowly narrowed his eyes. Xiao Zian slowly turned her head to look at Xiao Chen and asked, "Father, can I try my sword?" Xiao Chen glanced at Xiao Zian. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the neighing of horses. Originally, the collision of two carriages on the street attracted a lot of attention. This quarrel caused everyone to stop and look over. Now, a group of soldiers and horses rushed out. Seeing the appearance of the soldiers with swords and sabers, the crowd was immediately frightened. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear and they retreated for a long time. Only then did they realize that it was the Imperial Army of the city. Could it be that something big happened? Why did the Imperial Army come? The young lady was also shocked. Seeing the Imperial Army's posture, her heart was slightly shocked. She did not report it to the officials. What was going on? The person in the lead was the Imperial Army commander. After he dismounted, he strode towards the young lady who spoke before. The young lady thought that they were reinforcements and her eyes flashed with surprise. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, she was slapped to the ground by the Imperial Army commander. "How dare you speak rudely to the 9 emperors? And take her down." That thunder-like voice exploded beside her ear. This slap could be said to be without the slightest bit of hesitation, directly hitting the girl until she was dizzy and seeing stars. When she heard the berating voice, her face immediately widened in astonishment. What? The 9 emperors? Which 9 emperors? We have come late to welcome you. Please forgive us, 9 emperors. The Imperial Army commander suddenly knelt down. All the soldiers followed suit and bowed respectfully towards the carriage. The moment the words 9th Imperial Uncle were uttered, the crowd's minds went blank. No one knew who was the first to kneel down, but the surrounding people all knelt down in unison. In the current world, there was only one person who could be called the 9th Imperial Uncle. To be treated in this manner, other than the 9 emperors, Xiaochen, who else could it be? Under the nervous gazes of the crowd, Xiaochen slowly lifted the curtain. Dressed in black, he stepped out of the carriage. Following which, Jingyu also stepped out of the carriage. The two of them stood side by side. Their breathtaking faces and Jingyu's strange eyes caused everyone to be so shocked that they lowered their bodies even more. When the young lady who was slapped to the ground saw Xiaochen and Jingyu step out, she felt the world spin and her mind go blank. Even if she was beaten to death, she would never have imagined that the legendary 9 emperors and 9th imperial concubine would appear in such an ordinary carriage. Furthermore, she had just spoken rudely. Chapter 2187. The woman immediately sensed that her death had arrived. Did Xiao Bai send you here? Xiaochen looked around before his gaze landed on the Imperial Guard commander as he slowly asked. His Majesty sent me here. When His Majesty received the news that the 9th emperors had entered the city, he specially sent me here to welcome you. However, I didn't expect to cross the street, which resulted in the late arrival of the escort. Please forgive me, 9th emperors, the Imperial Guard commander said as he lowered his head. Stand up, Xiaochen coldly said. Thank His Majesty on behalf of this king. Don't block the street. Let's go. Xiaochen said as he helped Jingyu into the carriage. Then, as if he had thought of something, he turned his head to look at the woman kneeling on the ground and coldly said, Cut off her tongue for this king. You can't even teach your daughter well. This king's son shouldn't see blood at his wedding. Send him away. After Xiaochen said those words, he returned to the carriage. The Imperial Guard commander understood Xiaochen's meaning. The person who had crashed into his carriage was directly sent to the border with a single sentence from Xiaochen. He had saved the lives of his family on account of Xiaochen's wedding. The news of the 9th emperors and the 9th imperial concubine's return instantly swept through the entire city. Those citizens who were fortunate enough to see them with their own eyes couldn't help but run around the entire city to spread the news. Instantly, the entire city was in an uproar. What a headache! Jingyu helplessly lowered her head as she looked at the carriage escorted by the Imperial Guard and the many people following behind it. Master, Madam, we have arrived at the prince's mansion. The forward carriage stopped. Jingyu and Xiaochen, who were sitting in the carriage, slowly straightened their bodies and stepped out of the carriage. In front of them was the familiar gate of the prince's mansion and the handsome man standing in front of the gate. His eyes were filled with excitement and surprise as he strode towards Jingyu and Xiaochen. He stared at Jingyu and Xiaochen in silence for a long time before calling out, Father, Mother. Xiaochen's expression softened as he slowly nodded in response. Xiao Bai, let Mother take a look. Jingyu hurriedly went forward and looked at the handsome young man who was much taller than her. Her eyes instantly reddened. Why did she still feel like the little monkey she picked up on the island? In the blink of an eye, he had grown so big. Mother! Xiao Bai looked at Jingyu. His eyes were filled with gentleness as he slowly called out to her. My son is going to marry a wife. Xiao Bai has grown up. Jingyu was happy and sad at the same time. She turned to look at Xiaochen and asked seriously, Xiaochen, don't you think I'm old? What are you talking about? Xiaochen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this time, Jing Lang also came to greet them. Xing Yi also came to greet Xiaochen. Everyone who hadn't seen each other for many years gathered together and walked into the prince's mansion. They sat in the hall and talked. Tomorrow was Xiao Bai's wedding day. Jingyu and Xiaochen really came on time. They arrived the day before the wedding. Everyone who hadn't seen each other for a long time seemed to have endless things to talk about. Xiao Xin and the children also met for the first time. At this time, they were playing together. Xiaochen and Jingyu were tired from the journey. They didn't say anything and just went to sleep. They were only waiting for tomorrow's wedding. During this time, the emperor sent people to greet them. Xiaochen was holding his wife and didn't even see them. Chapter 2188. When this news reached the palace, Xiao Yuling was both angry and amused. However, her heart was filled with joy. Xiao Bai was getting married. The 9th emperors and the 9th imperial concubine had both returned. This Tokyo, which had been peaceful for a long time, was now filled with a huge commotion. The wedding procession was even bigger. It was truly the scene of the wedding procession. Xiao Chen and Jingyu sat in the seats of honor. Looking at the newlyweds kneeling in front of them, their hearts were incomparably complicated. The merry night only ended reluctantly in the middle of the night. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Jingyu clearly saw Xiao Yijuan drinking to drown his sorrows. She also saw Yun Yun, who had always been lively, sitting quietly in her original position. On the other side, Xing Yi, Xing Er, Xing San, and a few other brothers were drinking to their heart's content. The way they laughed so hard that it seemed as if they were about to cry. On the other side, Feng Maching was hugging Heli and Theo as if there was no one else around. On the other side, Su Yu, Feng Ju, and a few others were gathered together and chatting. Everything was so harmonious. Jingyu leaned on Xiao Chen's shoulder and watched the group of children play together. Suddenly, she felt that this life was enough. That night, the candlelight was brightly lit. When the sun rose, the fine wine in the prince's residence was completely drunk. Jingyu also drank until she returned to her room with a flushed face. She sat in front of the window and looked at the lights and moonlight outside. "What are you thinking about?" Xiao Chen hugged Jingyu from behind and asked with narrowed eyes. "Oh, nothing." Jingyu turned her head with misty eyes. She reached out and wrapped her arms around Xiao Chen's neck. Looking at Xiao Chen's face so close to hers, her eyes were filled with a satisfied smile. She slightly leaned forward and gave her red lips. The moonlight in the room was so beautiful and moving. The tall buildings stood tall in the bustling city. On the viaduct, a woman in tight clothes held a black gun in her hand. She narrowed her eyes and looked at the man standing in front of her. Her eyes were filled with curiosity. "Number 9? You didn't die?" The woman said coldly. "I'm not number 9. My name is Qinbai." The man stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes silent. "It's nothing more than the good and the bad, just with different beliefs. I enjoy the process and I love creating. Here, I want to thank everyone for their support. Now, this book has come to a perfect end. Those who can follow me to this point are definitely true love. So, in order to celebrate the end of this book, I will hold a small activity. All book friends are welcome to participate. You can leave a message in the book review section and write down any opinions you have about this book and the author's confession. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.